Hi, I'm Elizabeth, and I'm not buying books this year. I actually am a fairly new YouTuber, and I have never done a YouTube book tag. A booktube tag. But I've started watching a bunch of other booktubers, not just romance booktubers, which are the people that I was following before. And a booktuber that I have come to really enjoy named Kathy did this tag, and I thought it looked really fun, so I'm doing it today. This is the last 10 books tag, and the questions are the last book that you read, that you reread, things like that, just all about the last book. So let's get started. The first question is the last book you didn't finish. And I just talked about this on Wednesday, actually, when I did my end of January wrap-up. That was The Protector by Helen K. Diamond. And I didn't finish it because it was boring. And it was a library book, so it wasn't even on my TBR. And I got bored and returned it. So the second question is the last book you reread. And this one's kind of interesting. This is Magic Bites by Alona Andrews. This is the first book of the Kate Daniels series that just recently finished up last year. And my husband and I like to listen to audiobooks in the car when we take like road trips. And so we had listened to Hidden Legacy a while ago. We listened to Charm of Magpies, which are two of my very, very favorite series, period, but also my favorite audiobook series. And we were looking for something new, and I was like, well, why don't we do Kate Daniels since you liked Hidden Legacy? So the library has all of them, and so we're listening we listened to Magic Bites, and now we're on Magic Burns, which is the second book. And it's actually really funny because my husband really, really liked Hidden Legacy. He really liked Nevada and Rogan as characters. And he really, really, really likes Kate. He's deeply ambivalent about Curran. So if you've read the series, tell me down below, what did you think of Curran? Because my husband is very skeptical. Okay, so the third question is the last book that you bought. And this was Unfit to Print by KJ Charles. This was December 28th, 2018, because I'm not buying books this year. So that was the last book I bought. It's an romance, so male romance, set in Victorian London about a lawyer and an illicit bookseller. It has an inclusive cast. One of the leads is Anglo-Indian. And I knew this was part of my panic buy at the end of 2018 before I started the no book buying year, because I knew I would need at least one KJ Charles book to get me through the rest of the year. I think I actually have two. I have this one and I have Band Sinister that came out last year. And KJ Charles is one of my favorite writers and almost always 100% sure bet for me. So that one's good to have on the TBR for reading emergencies. The fourth question is the last book you said you read but you didn't. And this one's kind of funny because I'm in the middle of reading this one now. I arranged with a group of people on Twitter to read a bunch of nonfiction romance. And I have a stack of like 5 physical books and like 3 or 4 ebooks that are sort of fit in this category. And so we're reading Dangerous Men and Adventurous Women by Jane N. Krentz, and then a whole bunch of other like 80s and early 90s romance authors about the romance genre. So this is not, these are nonfiction, not fiction. So these are essays about romance rather than romances. And I really thought I had read a lot of this book. I thought I had really, like when I picked it up, I thought I'd read a bunch of it. And looking through it, seeing where my anyway, I'll get to that in just a second, what I was just about to say. But I really only read like the first 28 pages. So the first 2 or 3 essays in the book, and then also the one by Laura Kinsale, who is my very favorite writer, one of my very favorite writers. And so I thought I had read a lot more of it than that. It's not a long book. It's like 180 pages, something like that. But I'd really only read about 40 pages, and I really thought I'd read more, like about 2/3 to 3/4 of it. Nope. Oops. not right at all. And then the fifth question is last book you wrote in the margins of, which is also Dangerous Men and Adventurous Women. I don't know if you can see that, but all my little highlights and my little my little margin notes. Because this is nonfiction and there are things that I want to be able to talk with people about online, I did make little notes for myself so that I would have talking points, like for a class. It's kind of fun. If you want to join us reading this book, a lot of libraries still have it. And we're talking about it under the hashtag nonfictionrom, ROM, on Twitter, just sort of spontaneously as people get to whatever the assigned pages are for a week. There's only one, I think we're reading pages 1 to 30 this week, so it's 20 to 30 page bites. It's not a lot of reading. The sixth book is the last book the sixth question is the last book you had signed, and this is Lord of Scoundrels by Loretta Chase, and it's signed to me, to Elizabeth, and it says, "Thank you for loving my books and for sharing the love with others. All the best, Loretta Chase." We were talking about how I had given this to a friend who promptly texted me, or DM'd me, I guess, and said, "She shot him!" and she was both glorified and horrified, and I shared that with Loretta Chase, who promptly said that some heroes just need shooting. So that's actually probably one of my favorite signing stories ever. And I really treasure this because it's a romance classic and Loretta Chase is a class act, and it was a really good book. The last book I lost is actually The Windflower, this one, by Laura London. This also has bookmarks and notes and has actually notes in the margins too, but that's not the last one I took notes in the margins in. I went looking for this and I couldn't find it at some time last year because I wanted to just go ahead and finish it out. I don't have that much left of it and I really just wanted to get it done. And I haven't talked about this on YouTube at all, but I was in a car accident. I got rear-ended. I mean, it wasn't a bad car accident. I got rear-ended at the end of, I guess, the end of January, so a few weeks ago. And I couldn't find, I hadn't been able to find that book. And then when my car was totaled out, I mean, like I said, it really wasn't a bad accident, but I drove a really old car and it just needed too much work to be worth saving. So we emptied out the car and found it. So it's on my TBR for February. Terrible circumstances in which to finally unearth the book that I lost, but there you go. The last book that I had to replace is this one. This is Thief of Shadows by Elizabeth Hoyt. I was quite certain that I had a paperback copy of this. And then I went looking for it again to give to my husband. He wanted to read it after I told him about certain scenes. And I could not, he likes paperbacks and I could not find it in I don't know what I did with it. I must have loaned it to somebody maybe. So we went out before the end of last year and bought another copy. So that's the last book I had to replace because I lost it. Or gave it away, I'm not really sure which. The ninth question is one that I don't know that I can answer. It says it's the last book you had an argument over. And I don't know that I really necessarily have arguments about books. I think I frequently talk about books with people online, but I don't know that they ever really descend to the level of what I would call an argument. I will say that I did have a discussion about a YA, or I think, yeah, YA royalty romance. I think the name of the author was Rachel Hawkins. I'll put the cover up here because I'll pull it up. I don't have any interest in reading that. I was really sort of like the Crown Prince of Scotland. Scotland doesn't have a prince. Why not use a fake country? I don't know. I'm not a huge royal romance lover anyway. And using a fake prince of a real country just struck me as weird. So but people said that it was a really adorable book and that they really enjoyed it, and so we definitely had I guess a discussion about that on Twitter, but I don't know that I would really call it an argument. The last book that I couldn't get a hold of is The Last Question. This I would say is Entwined Destinies by Rosalind Welles. So I have owned 2 copies of this book. The first one was an original first edition with the original cover, and I sent it to I read it, and then I sent my copy to the Bowling Green State University Pop Culture Library because they only had a reprint edition, and they are kind of like, at least as far as I know, like the repository for genre romance in the United States from like a scholarly perspective. So if anybody was the right person, the right place to preserve an original copy of the first category romance written by a Black woman, that was it. So I do not at all begrudge them that copy, and I'm glad I sent it there. So I reordered it. I got a new copy. And during the Northeast Regional, New England Regional RWA conference last year in April, a friend of mine expressed an interest in reading the book, but I had already promised my copy to BGSU, so I had another one on the way, and that I was going to keep. But instead, because she's a real category romance lover, I ended up sending my copy to her, and I told her she could keep it because she was super, 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 super happy to be able to have it. I just assumed that having purchased 2 copies in relatively short order that I would be able to then just order another one. That was not the case. I've had it saved on my thrift books wish list forever. And the price has gone up, which is my fault. And so I haven't bought another one. And now, of course, it's going to have to wait until 2020. But in 2020, I am going to track down another copy of that book because it is something that I want to have in my own personal collection. So that was the last books tag. I hope this was fun in some way. It was my first tag, and I enjoyed it. So you'll probably be seeing more of these again in the future. Just a lighthearted, easy way to share some other things that I have in my collection, things that I have either read or not read. You know, something different. So have a good week. Doubt not, slay some words, and Lex has your back. Bye.